Hi everyone, it's Jenny Pienaar from South Africa. So when I was asked to speak about recent developments in South Africa, I thought it might be a good opportunity just to speak to you about a recent ruling that we've had from our newly formed Advertising Regulatory Board. Some of you will remember that we had an ASA, which is the Advertising Standards Authority, but it went into liquidation last year and it's been replaced by an organization called the ARB. So it's a bit of an unfortunate acronym, ARB, but it is what it is. So what has happened is the ARB has really taken over from the ASA, and the Code of Advertising Practice that was enforced by the ASA is now simply going to be enforced by the ARB. So I've got a video that I'd like to show you of an advert that ran. I'm not going to say anything about the advert, I'm just going to play it, and then hopefully it'll play, because it's important that it plays, and then we can talk about it afterwards.
A long, long time ago, when leather was still in fashion, a young man left his home to satisfy his hunger for adventure. His name was Big Jonathan, prince of the Mozambique tribe. A man with a spirit so untamable, he tamed the spirit of others. He was unstoppable. His hunger was too big. No one could shake Jonana's confidence. He weathered heavy storms, but if you asked him, he'd say it was just a breeze. Big Jonana did many things, but the one thing he will always be remembered for is discovering a foreign land. And that is the legend of Big John.
Now could you be John? Yeah, no problem. Sure.
Okay, so Chicken Licken is the competitor for KFC in South Africa. They're a South African company started by a guy who rocked the boat and registered the trademark McDonald's in South Africa many years ago, but then had to eventually give up the name, but in any event. So, and I think the important thing about the advert is that it caused quite a scene at the time when it came out. It was very popular. Everybody was tweeting about it. People were commenting about it on Facebook, sharing it. And everybody focused on the humorous aspect of the advert. They said it's funny, it takes colonialism, turns it on its head. But one individual decided, Mr. Sandile Qele, that he didn't like the advert, so he filed a consumer complaint with the ARB. And on the 14th of December, the ARB issued a ruling and they found the advert to be offensive. And what he said that the advert just makes a mockery, actually, of the entire experience. So it takes the struggles of the African people and it turns it into something humorous, and certain issues like that should never be the subject of any type of humor. In terms of the ARB Code of Advertising Practice, advertising may not be offensive, and generally in the past, the ARB's predecessor, the ASA, was quite liberal in applying offensive advertising, because they said in a country where we have a democracy and people are allowed to express themselves freely without major offense or sectoral offense, then adverts generally would be allowed. And there's a history of a lot of adverts that generally would initiate a reaction of negativity from you, but those adverts have actually been found not to be offensive. So what the ARB will do in a case like this is they'll look at the advert in the context in which it's made, look at the principles that underlie the advert, and then make a ruling on that. What Chicken Licken said in the complaint was they said all it attempts to do is it tries to show that South Africans have this great spirit, they're great adventurers, and that it's just tongue-in-cheek humor. There was never any intention to cause any offense, and it also relied quite heavily on the freedom of speech, which is upheld by Section 10 of our Constitution. In the end, the Advertising Regulatory Board said that it's a parody, but at the same time, if you look at whether or not it's going to cause offense, you have to look at the relevant public, people that would be affected by the advert and the message of the advert. And they said that where the conduct is not reasonable and justified, then the advert would be offensive. And they found that the advert was offensive, and Chicken Licken was ordered to pull the advert immediately. They then filed an appeal, and to the best of my knowledge, it's the first appeal that's been heard by the Appeals Committee of the ARB. In fact, the ruling was only issued, I think, on the 19th of February, which is quite quick because normally they take their time with these matters, and the original ruling was issued in December last year. And what they said was that they sort of took the whole committee through the entire advert, broke it up into its different sections, concentrated on different messages that had been given out, all to try and establish whether or not there'd been overall offense. And they said that certain subjects can never be the subject of humor. Genocide, slavery, human trafficking, exploitation, those kind of subjects are just no-go subjects. So if you have to decide whether or not freedom of speech should outweigh humor and parody, and whether or not you would have the right to turn something which has a serious undertone into something that is funny, it will be offensive and unacceptable. And that's it. But what I really just wanted to express, and I'd just like to, if you don't mind, can you just pass me that down there? Yeah, thank you. I just want to read you something from the ruling, which I thought was quite, I just want to try and see if I can find it here. They said that a people's right to inherent dignity and the right to have their dignity respected and protected, as required by Section 10 of the Constitution, requires that the right to freedom of expression bows to their right not to have the wounds of genocide, sexual abuse, slavery, human trafficking, and subjugation to not be opened, especially to be satirized, unless the depiction is reasonable and justifiable in terms of the Code and the Constitution. And in this case, they said it can never be reasonable or justified, either in terms of the Code or in terms of the Constitution. I've given you, there's a link embedded to the ARB's website in the beginning of the presentation. They are uploading their rulings fairly regularly, so there is a little bit of material that is appearing. There's been a bit of a debate about whether or not they have jurisdiction to hear complaints, because it's a self-regulatory body that has to have contracts with its members. So, and that was one of the reasons why the ASA fell flat, was because the jurisdiction of the ASA to make rulings was challenged about 2 years ago. So it remains to be seen where we will go with advertising self-regulation. There are other ways in which advertising is regulated in any event in relation to specific products. But this watchdog for now is accepting complaints and is hearing complaints. And this is one of the best examples that I could find. So thank you for your time.